I stopped at 14 different Goodwills in 7 different states recently as I made my journey south to Florida for the winter. I was kind of shocked by what I found, not only with regard to prices and store setup, merchandising approaches, but the thing that really impacted me was the difference in the amount of vintage that's available at different locations. And stick around in the video, I'll explain more what I mean about that. Welcome to my Florida home. This is the Florida room, and it obviously has the best lighting. So I'm filming my intro and my conclusion out here today, and maybe you'll see a lot of this as I use it for my intros in my upcoming videos. I'm Carol, retired teacher who has turned my love of vintage into a successful Etsy business for the last 3 years and made over 1,000 sales. I like to share my experiences, my approaches, and what I've learned about selling on Etsy, though I am not an expert. In this video, we'll take a look at each stop along the way, compare prices, store setup, and I will let you know how much I spent at each store. At the end of this video, I am going to not only share how all of those prices compared to my local Florida Goodwill here, but I'm also going to give you a sneak peek at my Florida shop setup. So stick around. I am on my way out of the garage. You can see it's still dark outside. I should be at the Goodwill in Wapakoneta, Ohio at 8 a.m. when they open. Let's hit the road. The sun is bright here, but I've arrived at Wapakoneta, Ohio, Goodwill. There's no one else in the parking lot. I'm hoping they are actually open. We'll see when we get inside. Well, the Wapakoneta store was decent. There was lots of vintage, a little overpriced, I thought. Nothing I needed from this grouping. Um, I loved their tags. They're easy to read. And I did find some Precious Moments wedding there. You'll have to see if I bought them. The bronze ducks I loved, but I didn't want to pay that much. And I did hit the bounty of cat's meows. So the prices here were not bad, pretty similar to Michigan, actually. They didn't have any crystal stemware, no butter dishes, only one small set of silver plate flatware that was mismatched. Figurines, they had quite a few. They had a lot of glasses and mugs and vases. Books were $2.99. Next stop, Vandalia, Ohio. This is a big, beautiful store, very neatly set up. It just gave off really good vibes. Lots of merchandise here, not a lot of vintage, lots and lots of glass. But again, like I say, not a whole lot of vintage. Prices were good. They had those nice big stickers, easy to read stickers. These were vintage, but they're clear, so I passed. This was a decent store, clean, tidy. Prices were not terrible. They did have some crystal, $3.99 each. No butter dishes, no silver plate. Figurines were $4.99. Glasses were $1.99, as were mugs. Most vases were $3.99, and books were $2.99. This was a pretty nice stop. I've just arrived at the Dixie Drive North location in Dayton, Ohio, Goodwill. It's about 5 miles down the road from the Vandalia Goodwill I was last at. Let's go inside and see what they've got. This was a small store, very crowded inside, kind of messy, a lot of stuff, not a lot of nice stuff. So I didn't stay there very long. Their prices were not terrible. I mean, in line with where I had been previously. At the Chillicothe store, I noticed prices were going down, but so was the selection of merchandise. Not much vintage here that I would want to buy and try to resell. However, someone had made these really cute little bird feeder, bird bath things out of old plates and glasses, and those were really cute. The prices really, like I say, they started going down here for glasses, mugs, vases, especially. No crystal was available though, no butter dishes, no silver plate. So I moved on. And this was the Jackson, Ohio Goodwill store. I didn't think I'd be able to sell these, so I passed, but they were the nicest thing in the store. It was starting to look like a jumbled mess in the Goodwills. Uh, Prices were low, I will say that, but not a lot available of the kind of stuff that I would want to buy. So I moved on. Next stop, Gallipolis, Ohio, Goodwill. Lots of shoes here, and they're starting to get some boots out. So you know what that means. They had a pretty good selection of vintage figurines, dishes. Of course, I love the anniversary items, so you know I probably got into those. Most of the glassware was contemporary, pretty modern looking. They had this nice glass swan, but I didn't really want to pay what they wanted for it, and I really didn't want to have to ship it. And I don't know if it would really even sell in that brown color. The silver plate was totally overpriced. There was no crystal stemware. They did have that one butter dish, but it was modern. Silver plate, overpriced. Figurines, glasses, mugs, vases, and books. Pretty comparable prices to the other Ohio stores. One more stop for today coming up. This is always my favorite part of any trip to West Virginia. My family is from West Virginia, both my mother and my father. I have very few relatives left in West Virginia, and I was on my way to spend the night with my cousin, who will soon be 90 years old. And I love going across this bridge. I usually play a different song, but I think I would get in trouble playing that song on this video. So I will just stick to what's free, and we're going to bump on across here. I apologize for it being a little bumpy, but I just want to get you to the sign. And there it is. Welcome to West Virginia. This is the Teays Valley Goodwill store. I've been here before. I know it's kind of a jumble store. Everything is random. All of the hard goods. I did like that though. Did I buy it? We'll find out. All the hard goods are just placed on top of the clothes racks. It's all totally random. I don't know how you'd really ever find anything here, especially hard goods. You have to go up and down every single aisle to find stuff. I did buy something, but what was it? We'll find out next week. The prices here were quite low, actually. Most of the figurines, glasses, mugs, vases, everything was $1.99. The most interesting thing here was that they did not have any books. They didn't even have a place to display books. They had CDs and DVDs, but no books. I found that really interesting. I headed out the next morning along the West Virginia Turnpike, headed for beautiful Beckley, West Virginia. And when I arrived, I found that it was a super neat and clean store, but they still followed this format of putting all of their items, their hard good items, up on top of the clothing racks. Now, I'm short, I'm only 4'11, and it's really hard for me to see stuff up here. And unfortunately, a lot of the vintage I found was damaged, but they still had it for sale. Interesting way of hanging pants again. And if you need some perm rods, head on down to the Beckley, West Virginia store. You won't be disappointed. Most of the prices were very low. They're actually just about in line with the Teays Valley source. So West Virginia must follow certain pricing. I kind of found that Ohio was following the same pricing also. When I asked the clerk here why they didn't have any books. She said, "We just don't have room for any." So my plan was to just visit Goodwills on this trip. But when I got finished at the Beckley Goodwill store, just a little ways from here, I realized I've never been to an antique store in Beckley, West Virginia. This is a beautiful little town. I've driven through so many cute little neighborhoods here. I've actually never gotten off the highway. I come through here all the time. But I decided I would stop here at the Hickory Tree Antique Mall and see what they have to offer. I'm only going to give myself 45 minutes. We'll just see how it goes. This was a beautiful little antique mall, and boy, did I need this break from Goodwill. The prices on many things were way too high for resellers, but I sure enjoyed looking at everything. Uh, this is why I prefer antique malls to thrift stores to source from, even though you have to dig pretty hard to find stuff that you can afford to resell. And what's an antique store without a penguin ice bucket? There it is. I did spend quite a bit of money here. I'll show you this stuff next week when I show you my Goodwill finds. We have arrived at the Wytheville, Virginia Goodwill. Let's go inside. This was a beautiful stop up on a mountaintop. Lots of shoes here. Lots of shoes available. If you need shoes, they had bins of them. They had books though, and that was great. This is a crazy pricing setup here on this butter dish. $5.99, but you turn it over and it was only $5 to start with. I don't know. They had some really nice stuff here. And you can see next week what I bought because I spent $27.77 at this store. There wasn't any crystal. They did have that one butter dish. That was it. They had some silver plate, but the prices on figurines, glasses, mugs, vases were excellent. And like I say, they actually had books. So that was a win for my last stop of day 2 on the road. I really enjoyed these cute scarecrows they had at the Tennessee Welcome Center just north of the North Carolina border. I had planned on stopping at the Goodwill in Johnson City, Tennessee as I came through there, but I was tired and I knew I wanted to get to North Carolina because I was planning on spending the evening with my son. So I just kept going, and here we are, the first views of North Carolina. There's not a lot of miles between the North Carolina border and Asheville, where my son lives, but it's just a beautiful drive, and I really enjoyed it. And I was kind of glad I skipped Johnson City because I was a little bit tired of Goodwills. So after a nice breakfast with my son, I got on the road for South Carolina. Look at that, either low cloud or fog up ahead in the trees. It was just another beautiful day for traveling. I couldn't have asked for better weather. It was great. And I had never been down this road before, from Asheville south to Greenville, Athens, and finally Macon, where I ended up spending the night. Now, my hair was hit on this third day of travel, so you probably won't see much of me in clips describing these Goodwills, but let's move on ahead to Greenville. From the neighborhood around it, I knew this Greenville store would be a really good one. And look, inside, they even had a special loft area for higher end clothing back in the back of the store. I thought that was pretty cool. And they had a lot of furniture. So if you live in that area and you need furniture, they have a lot there. There were so many mugs. There were actually a lot of hard goods, and they were organized really well. Everything was separated into categories. There was some vintage mixed in, which was great. And I had a lot of fun shopping here. I went back and forth on this. I knew the finish was gone, but I really wanted it. And if you need this cup, it is at the Greenville, South Carolina store. I didn't buy it. The prices here were fantastic. Glasses and mugs, mostly all 99 cents. Vases, average price. Figurines, pretty low price at $1.99. They did have quite a few pieces of stemware there, crystal stemware. No butter dishes, though. It was a short drive from Greenville to Piedmont, South Carolina, and this Goodwill was very nice. It had some of the best clothing, actually, in my opinion, that I'd seen anywhere. Although on the whole trip, I only bought myself one blouse. I moved to the back of the store where they had all their hard goods along the back wall. It was kind of a hodgepodge, but there was quite a bit of vintage mixed in. They had a whole wall of art, and they also had really good furniture here. Now, as far as their prices go, they didn't have any crystal, no butter dishes. Silver plate, they had one piece of flatware for $2.99. But again, South Carolina, those prices are low. $1.99 figurines, 99-cent glasses and mugs, $1.99 vases, and $2 books. The prices are good. My last Goodwill stop for day 3 was in Athens, Georgia. This was a beautifully merchandised store. Everything was color coded, even the plastics. You get a quick glimpse of them here. Lots of plastics, lots of glass. Everything was in categories. That was great. And not so much vintage. And when there was vintage, you had to really be careful because, like those cute black and white plates there, you'll see there's lots of chips. So you had to watch out for that. I didn't buy anything here. The prices were a little bit higher than South Carolina, but not too bad, really. After I left here, I drove through some beautiful little towns like Madison, Georgia, and Monticello, Georgia. And then I finally spent the night in Macon, Georgia, and readied myself for my last day of Goodwill thrifting, day 4. I have arrived in Florida. Here I am, Lake City, Florida, and I'm about to go in the Goodwill here. I'm really hoping that things start looking up because I'm pretty down about how there was basically no vintage in the Goodwill stores in West Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia. If you live in those states, I feel you because I guess I never realized how little vintage was available in those stores. I'm used to shopping Michigan and Florida, and Michigan, Florida has great vintage and Goodwill stores. So let's see if that proves true here at Lake City, Florida, and see what we can find inside. It was just starting to rain as I got to Lake City, Florida. Prices were kind of high here on the few vintage things that they did have. Now, this plate wasn't bad, but those don't sell for me. I left it behind. I really like this bunny plate, but it was not vintage, so I also left it behind. The store was kind of sparse. It wasn't nearly as full as some of the other stores that I had been in, but there was some vintage available. The big draw was these bins, though. They had this big rack of bins filled on either side, not appealing to me, however. Now, this store had a treasure island, which I see Lady Mary Beth talk about sometimes. This little treasure island was one case with some camera equipment in it, nothing to boast about. I did buy a few things here. As you can see, the prices are starting to creep up a bit. Figurines are a little bit more, glasses, mugs, vases, books are lower, but I think this is going to be a trend as we travel south. Hello, Gainesville, Florida Goodwill. It has started to rain a little bit, but it's 77 degrees, so it's fine. Let's go inside and see what Gainesville has for us. So when I walked in, I just couldn't I just couldn't do it anymore. I did go around and find the prices that I needed to complete this chart for you so you would know what the prices were like here in Gainesville, Florida. Um, they had one piece of crystal, and I think they just didn't know what it was because it was priced the same as the other glassware. Figurines, a little cheaper than Lake City, Florida, but everything else was in line. Books were a little bit more expensive here, but this was my final stop, and I was almost home. Next week, I will be showing you what is inside all of these bags. from my trip to Florida. But I just wanted to share that once I got here, a couple days later, I did go to my local hometown Florida Goodwill, and I was aghast at the prices. They have really gone up since we went home in the spring. Crystal stemware, which they had quite a bit of, it, it wasn't what I wanted, but $5.19 a piece. Butter dishes, $4.98. Silver plate serving, $7.19. Now, I actually did buy that. That was a really nice silver plate cake stand. Figurines, though, they're averaging at $5.19. Glasses, $3.9. Just regular drinking glasses, regular old glasses, contemporary, not even vintage, $3.19 each. Same with the mugs. Most of the vases were $5.19. And the books, I believe, were $3.88 a piece. I know they were more than $3. I forgot to write it down, but I'm glad that that store delivers for me because the prices are really high compared to the prices on the road. So, after 1,200 miles and many Goodwills, what did I learn? Even though I was really tired and really burnt out by the end, I learned that Goodwills vary so much from state to state and even region to region. Prices vary, availability of vintage varies, and quite frankly, I guess it probably depends on who is managing each individual store as far as the setup and whether or not it's what I call a jumble store. In my next video, I will share with you the haul that I did bring home from these Goodwill stops. But before I go today, I would like to show you my Florida setup. We actually have a triple wide setup here in this 55 plus mobile home park that we live in here in Central Florida. And one entire side of our home it's the Florida room where we are now in the front, and then the back 2/3 is actually a big long room with a laundry at the end. And so my husband and I have recreated that room from what I would call a den into a shop area. He has his desk area in there. I have my shop area. I also have my piano because I'm old fashioned. I do play the keyboard with the praise team at our church, but I like to practice on a piano at home. So I have an actual piano here too. I will show you that area. And then maybe you will just be so kind as to stick around and watch that video that comes up at the end of this episode. If you're interested sometime, I will show you our entire home here. But this is the Florida room where I was just filming. And if I turn here, I do like flamingos. If I turn here, you'll see back into the room where I have my shop. And I'll walk back there. There is my piano. Here is my table where I do all of my packing of my boxes. I've got some supplies here. I've got peanuts here, packing paper, and this table is nice and big to allow me to pack boxes. Then I've got my bins with my merchandise in it here on racks similar to what I had in Michigan, actually the same racks, with my boxes sprinkled in between. I do have a large stock of Waterford here. Those are all listed. Everything on this shelf is not listed yet. And those are my bins. Over in this corner is my photography studio. I do take my product photos here. I'll turn it on. That's where I take my product photos. For now, I have all my Christmas merchandise down in those two bins. The tops of the bins are numbered, so I know what's in there, SKU wise. Then we just have our laundry area. That's lovely, I'm sure. Then I've got some packing supplies over here, extra peanuts, bubble wrap. My computer setup is here for filming some YouTube videos and also for doing my work. I like to have a nice big screen to do my photographer work. And then we have got our printer here in a handy place. My husband has some of his supplies there, and his area is over here in the corner. So that would just about conclude our episode today. Do me a favor and watch the video that comes up on screen, and I will see you next time.